Alright, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new video. Welcome back to the That Snapchat Yellow C6 YouTube channel. If you're new here, stop what you're doing, hit that subscribe button. Always helps me so much more than you know. Today, guys, I have a really special video. I had a subscriber request me do a review on his 2006 Honda S2000. So this is going to be that video. I'm currently in the car now. We're about to take off, and so this car, again, is 2006 Honda S2000. It only has just an intake and exhaust, but a very clean version of the car, and already the car is driving great. But again, this one's tastefully modified, as not too much is done to it, and personally, I like that. Whenever I get a car, I really like to get the car and then mod it myself. I'd rather buy it stock and mod it later, and that's pretty much what Dustin has done. And it's a beautiful car, as you saw in the B-roll shots that I got. Let me put on my seatbelt here. As you saw in the B-roll shots that I got of the car, it's beautiful red. He just got it repainted, and it looks absolutely amazing. And honestly, with the brand new red paint job, if I was to get an S2000, I normally like silver, but this red pops pretty good. Looks really good. But just to give you guys a little brief history on the Honda S2000, the car debuted actually in the car actually debuted back in 1999. If you think about that, that's kind of crazy. That's over 20 years old this car is. And this aged pretty well. The car still looks awesome. It's a head turner for sure. And, you know, depending on who you are, you could be somebody who's into muscle cars or JDM cars. But the Honda S2000 is just an iconic car. In my opinion, I think that the Fast and the Furious movie, especially the original, kind of boosted the S2000's popularity. The S2000 was actually made for Honda's 50th anniversary. It's kind of their halo car. And I'll have to admit, they did a really good job. They really did. This car is not the practical car that, you know, you're used to with like most Hondas. It's just a two-seater. It has a one square cup holder. It's not a car that, you know, you're going to pile people in and go places. This is a dedicated sports car, and it is a freaking good one, I have to admit. So this is the AP2. If you don't know the S2000s, there's two versions. The 1999 or 2000 model, if you're in the United States, from 2000 to 2003 was known as the AP1 Honda S2000. The AP1 had a 2-liter engine, and it was known as the F20C. Some people like the AP1 better, some people like the AP2. The AP2 is from 2004 to 2009. The differences between the two, the AP2, the later year model, has a little bit more torque, but unfortunately sacrificed redline. So originally the Honda S2000 had a 9,000 RPM redline, which people adored. But one of the biggest complaints about the Honda S2000 was the low torque numbers. I'll admit, the car doesn't have a ton of torque. I mean, getting on it, you really have to wring it out. It's kind of like a street bike. You got to wring it out to get the power out of it. So again, the AP2 is, of course, it's down on RPM range, but it does pick up a little bit in the torque numbers. So the AP1 made 237 horsepower and 153 pound-feet of torque. Now, also, guys, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind these cars only weigh about 2,800 pounds, and that is not much. I mean, it's really not. It does not take a lot of horsepower to get these cars moving pretty good. Now, the AP2, they made the same horsepower, 237, but the red line has been decreased from 9,000 to 8,200. The AP2 makes 162 pound-feet of torque. Now, you may say, well, that's not a very big difference in torque. I'd rather have the 9,000 RPM rev limit. To each their own. I'm kind of in the middle, to be honest. I like both. They both have their perks and cons. I will say that even though it's not a ton of torque difference, I have driven both cars, and you can tell the difference. For regular driving, I think that I would prefer the AP2 for cruising. As far as running and racing as hard as you can, I would say the AP1 would be the way to go, because that 9,000 RPM redline is pretty intoxicating when you're letting it sing up there. So now that you guys kind of have the backstory on the Honda S2000 and kind of what it's all about, I'm kind of going to go over some of the driving dynamics of the car. First off, you'll know that this is a very small car. Now, as you can tell, I'm not the smallest human being on earth, but this car is pretty tight in here for me. I mean, you know, there's really not any extra room. If you're a bigger person, this probably isn't the car for you, to be honest, because you're going to be pretty cramped up. Another thing about the S2000 that people don't like is that the steering wheel is not adjustable. You cannot tilt it, you cannot move it forward and backwards, none of that. It's just, it is where it's at, and you're not going to change it. I think that they could have added an adjustability setting for the steering wheel, would have been nice, but it's not there, and that's okay. As far as the headroom, this car's got tons of headroom. I mean, it's got probably more headroom than my Corvette does. I mean, that's probably 6 inches of headroom, and which is plenty enough. Even for a tall guy, I feel like this car has enough headroom. All right, I know if you're watching this and you're thinking about getting an S2000, you probably want to hear it singing. So I'm gonna pull over and let this car pass me. I'm gonna get a few wide open throttle pulls. All right, so we're gonna do a first gear pull. We'll kind of go 1, 2, 3, maybe part of fourth. So we're gonna start off, and I want you guys to listen to the RPMs. When it hits 6,000 RPMs, it's gonna cross over into VTEC, and he's got an intake on here, so you'll be able to hear it a little bit. So again, back to first, and we're gonna take off at about 4,500. Oh my goodness. I understand why people love this car. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. This thing turns really good. Wow. That's impressive, guys. This thing is so planted. It really is. Honestly, after driving this thing in curves, I kind of understand why you don't want it to have a ton of power, because you can, the thing about it is, it's so good in curves, but you also don't have to be too scared of it, because it's not like it's making 300 or 400 horsepower and the back end's going to kick out. If you clutch kick it, you can get the back end to come out, but I'm just saying it's very controllable, but very capable at the same time. I understand, I really do. I understand why people love this car. The steering feel is just, I love it. I think I've talked about this in a past video, but it's got kind of a weighted steering to it, which I'm really a fan of that. I had a 2005 Acura RSX Type S, and it kind of had a heavy steering like that, and I really like that. It kind of gives a sense of weight. I don't know, it just gives the car a good balance, I feel like, when you're driving it. It just feels right with a little bit of weight and heft to the steering wheel instead of it being too light. It takes away from it being a driver's car, in my opinion. Taking off here. Clutch is very smooth, very predictable. It's taken me about 2 minutes to get used to driving this thing, and it's just very smooth. The gear shifter, if you've ever drove an S2000, you will hear people praising the shifter, and they're right, because it's amazing too. It's very notchy, but not in a bad way. When you put it in gear, there's no guesswork. You know it's in gear. It's just very straightforward. It's short. There's not a very long throw. I like that. Brakes are pretty good too. I know Dustin had mentioned something about maybe upgrading his brakes if he ever adds more power to this. I could see that if you added more power, but honestly, at stock or close to stock level, it's not bad. It still stops plenty good enough. Now, as far as ride quality goes, it's a little stiff, but for this type of car, it's not stiff. So it's not a Cadillac. You're still going to feel a lot of stuff on the road, which you want to. You want to feel connected to the road, but it's not so harsh that you can't stand it. Now, would I want to take this thing on a 6-hour drive? Probably not. There's not a lot of room in here. And also, another thing with it being not a hard top, there is a little bit of wind noise coming through at 45, so I can imagine on the highway it would be a little bit worse. Guys, this is still a Honda. It's really reliable. This engine is great. This is probably, out of all the Honda engines, this is probably like the main one that everybody loves to get, especially in late model Hondas. I mean, the F22 or the F20C, both are great engines, ton of capability, and again, that good Honda reliability. And another cool I mean, guys, again, with it being Honda, everything just works. There's not really many quirks to the car. The interior is really nice as well. It's not a luxury car, but it's what you would expect from Honda. It has a pretty nice fit and finish. There are obviously some cheap plastics in here, But it's not bad. They're not terrible, and also it's not like the dash is cracking. To my knowledge, these cars don't have that issue. And again, remember guys, these cars are getting kind of old. I know this is a 2006, but that's still 15 years old. Think about other cars that came out in 2006 and compare them to this. Kind of just, if you really think about it, it shows you that how well these cars were built. And honestly, most Hondas of that era were built pretty well and are very reliable. This is an awesome car. You could take it out blasting on the weekends with your buddies. You got air conditioning, you got heat. It's not too bare bones. You ain't gonna be able to eat in here if you stop at a fast food restaurant, or at least have much room to eat, but that's not what this car is about anyway. Now the S2000, as far as gas mileage goes, I haven't really had enough time to drive it to tell you 100%, but I'll throw up the stock numbers on the screen here, the stock gas mileage. I would imagine, if I'm guessing, it's probably somewhere around 25 on the highway and probably around a little bit over 20 in the city. I don't know. You will see if I'm correct on my guess right now or not. I know a lot of people hate on these Hondas, but they're really not bad. See if you know somebody who's nice enough to let you try one. You'll understand it. You really will. I know that it's not a V8, but they're still very engaging and just very fun to drive. It's such a driver-oriented car, especially with the interior. Everything in here, guys, is pointed towards me. There's no controls for the passenger. Really, the only thing that the passenger might be able to do is adjust the volume on the radio, and that's pretty much it. Super driver-oriented car. I'm kind of going to go over roughly the cost of this car or cars like this, and if it would be worth it to buy it. So more than likely, if you're looking at Honda S2000s, you're in a sports car market. Now, my recommendation, it depends on you as always, but if you're looking for a car that's, reliable, decent on gas, very, very sporty, you don't care about having 4 seats, you can get by with a 2-seater. These cars are a blast to drive. It really is. I wish I had more time with the car, honestly. I haven't really got enough time with it as I'd like. We're fighting daylight today. Getting these shots has been something else. I know you guys can't see this, but I was actually hanging out of the back of my buddy's C7 Corvette getting a video of this thing. But today's been a little bit of a struggle with filming, but that's okay. The little bit of time that I have with the car, it is absolutely awesome. Again, Honda reliability, you're good there. Cost of these cars, typically, from what I'm seeing, this could be a little bit off. You're looking anywhere between, and this obviously depends on the shape and mileage of the car, but you're probably looking between 10 all the way, I've seen some go all the way up towards $20,000. And that would be for probably more of a pristine car. And honestly, this one is pretty pristine. It does have about 164,000 miles on it. Again, that just goes to show you, man, these cars are just reliable. They'll take care of you if you take care of it. You change the oil in it, and this thing's probably going to be pretty good. The only complaints I hear about out of these cars is the rear diff and the rear axles. They tend to be a little bit weak. Now, in stock form, you probably won't have too much of an issue, but if you start throwing a lot of power at it, you're probably going to have to get axles and a diff. But other than that, these cars are pretty much bulletproof. You can do about whatever you want to with them, within reason. Hear that crossover one more time. And, oh man, the intake really makes it where you can hear the VTEC crossover. I love that. I never had an intake on my Type S, so I really couldn't hear the crossover as well as I can in this one. I wish I would have had that now. But Dustin, I want to give a huge shout out to you, man. One of the reasons I was so excited to do this review, this is actually the first car review I've done on YouTube that is from a subscriber or someone who isn't a friend or that I already knew previously. So it means a lot to me that you reached out to me, and he actually drove all the way here from Raleigh, which is about an 1.5-hour drive. So I appreciate you taking the time and the effort out to do that. But as always, guys, if you're new here, stop what you're doing, hit that subscribe button. It always helps me so much more than you know. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers, and I'm probably going to do another giveaway at 2,000. Last time I gave away a GoPro. I don't know what I'll give away at 2,000, but as we get closer to it, we'll kind of talk about that and figure that out. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for making it to the end of the video. If you can get your hands on an S2000, I would recommend it. If you're looking for something that's fun, fast, sporty, reliable, And it's just really such a great car. I mean, I would seriously recommend an S2000 if you're looking for something fun, sporty, quick, peppy, reliable, two-seater, and if you don't care about having a V8, this is probably your way to go, honestly. And not only that, this car is just a head turner. It probably always will be. There is a special aura, if you will, about the S2000, and if you're a Honda guy, you already know that, but if you're not, these cars are special, and I do 110% understand why people love them so much. But I'm done rambling, guys. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. As always, have an awesome day. Peace.